All right, as an athlete, let's just ask the question we all think about. Does getting older automatically mean getting slower? Is that performance decline just inevitable once you hit a certain age?
Well, for this explainer, we're digging into Fast After 50 by the legendary endurance coach Joe Friel. And his book tackles this exact question head-on. And trust me, his conclusions, all backed by science, they might just completely change how you think about aging and athletics.
I mean, science has a pretty grim shopping list for what it calls normal aging. You know the stuff, right? Your skin loses elasticity, your hair thins and grays, you might actually lose a little height, hearing and vision decline. The list goes on. It's a pretty depressing list, isn't it? This is what we're all told to expect.
But here's the big question. What if that's not your story? What if that whole normal thing just isn't the destiny for a committed athlete like you?
And this quote from the book, man, it just hits the nail on the head. This is Friel's whole argument in a nutshell. He points out that our entire understanding of aging is, well, it's fundamentally flawed. Why? Because all the data comes from studies of normal people who are often sedentary, overweight, and unmotivated. That's not an athlete. That's not you.
So, okay, what's actually possible when you're not just a sedentary subject in some study? Well, how about this for an example? At 64 years old, Diana Nyad swam 111 miles from Cuba to Florida. I mean, let that sink in. That's 111 miles of non-stop swimming in the open ocean.
And look, this isn't just a one-off thing. Take Libby James. At age 76, she didn't just run a half marathon. She ran it so fast that when you do what's called age grading for time, it was better than every single other runner that year. We're talking regardless of age. These aren't just flukes. They're examples of what's really possible.
Okay, so if it's not just your birthday that's holding you back, then what is it? Friel argues that we've got to stop blaming the calendar and start looking at our real, trainable performance limiters.
Now, this is a really important concept from the book. A limiter isn't just any old weakness you have. No, it's an event-specific weakness. So for example, if you're a 5K runner having poor ultramarathon endurance, that's not your limiter. It's all about figuring out what is actually holding you back in the specific sport you do. Okay, so Friel really zeroes in on three huge performance limiters, especially for us aging athletes. We're talking about declining aerobic capacity, which is your VO2 max, the loss of muscle mass, also known as sarcopenia, and increasing body fat. So let's break these down.
All right, first up, let's talk about that big one, VO2 max. Friel calls this your fitness age, and you're about to see why.
So what exactly is VO2 max? Well, it's basically the maximum amount of oxygen your body can use when you're exercising at your absolute hardest. You can think of it like the size of your car's engine. It's a really key marker of your endurance fitness.
And this is where things get really cool, because your VO2 max score isn't just some random number. It can literally tell you your fitness age. So it makes you wonder, right? What's yours?
Just take a look at this table from the book. It's pretty fascinating. It shows the typical VO2 max values for different age groups. But here's the kicker. A highly trained 55-year-old athlete can easily have the same aerobic capacity, the same engine size, as an average person in their 20s. That's what we mean when we say you can be biologically younger than your actual age.
So here's the most important takeaway. Yes, your VO2 max does decline with age. For most people, that's about 10% every decade. But, and this is a huge but, for athletes to do high-intensity training, you can cut that loss in half, down to just 5% per decade. Think about that. You're literally changing the slope of your own aging curve.
So, we know we can train to keep our aerobic engine big and powerful. But what about our horsepower? That brings us to the next major limiter, the battle against muscle loss.
There's a scientific name for this. It's called sarcopenia. And it's basically the slow, progressive loss of muscle that for normal people starts to creep in right around age 40.
And for folks who are sedentary, this is a really slippery slope. By the time they hit 70, they've lost almost a quarter of their muscle mass. Just one decade later, at 80, another 15 to 20% can just vanish. This is a huge reason why people become frail as they get older.
But again, what about athletes? Well, a fascinating study looked at what are called motor units. Think of them as the nerves that tell your muscles to fire. And the results were just stunning. Sedentary 60-year-olds had 35% fewer of these motor units than young adults. But the runners in their 60s, get this, they had the exact same number as the young people. At a neurological level, their muscles were pretty much still young.
And this brings us right back to a core message from the book. The main reason for muscle decline isn't your genes or your birthday, it's a lack of use. It really is a case of use it or lose it. It's nurture. It's about what we do, not nature, that's responsible for most of this loss.
So when you just step back and look at these two big things, your aerobic capacity and your muscle, the message from Friel's book is just one of incredible empowerment. The science is so clear on this. You have way more control over how you age as an athlete than you probably ever thought.
So ultimately, it all comes down to this. That decline we see in normal people, it doesn't have to be your story. The question isn't if you're going to age. Of course, we all will. The real question is how.